I will say that just started. Self-compassion is a deep practice.
Well, I was going to say it would be awesome if people could immediately harvest the gold underneath the barbs
Mm,
from within relational attacks and
mm.
conflicts. Like, whoa, wait, let me look at myself. Oh, you teach me much. I go deal with this. So, I don't know if the voice was necessary for that, but
No,
anyway,
no, it's a good point. I
It
mean,
added
I
to it,
was
you
like
but
five
added
or
to it.
six.
Yeah, yeah, this is good.
I was
Today's
five or
going to be a
six
great
years
day.
into my meditation practice, so I don't think it would have been possible if I hadn't been like 5 years meditating. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, yeah. So you must be enlightened master. Then you take barb.
Well,
You take gold from barb. Oh,
it
all right.
helps.
So who has directly touched or experienced something they might call love, God, truth, or all of the above? Could be caffeine. Caffeine could be categorized. All right. Who has been fueled by your experience and desires to bring and share it with the world? Here's a depiction of me finding that experience and sharing it with the world. Who is humble enough to be an inquiry rather than arrogant in dogma to grow and progress towards deeper understanding, comma, understanding, and awareness of what all the above means so that we can bring and expand more of it into the world. If that's you, say I. All right. It sounds like the one who is here despite illness was the only one I could hear the I from.
Oh, I raised my hand. I had to say it verbally.
I mean, if you want, you don't have to. Welcome, crew. This is us in contemplation of the mystery and or the nature of metaphysics through experiments, experience, expression, conversation, dialogue, debate, discussion. There's a further distinction which is going to come down the pipeline today because I don't think the what is God and how do we know discussion is going to last the whole time. It's between the
Well,
soldier who has certainty and clarity and confidence about the truth that he has uncovered or experienced, and the hunchback, who is clearly confused. Who else remembers Quantum Leap? Did you guys see Quantum Leap? It was so good. So Scott Bakula, late 80s, early 90s, if I'm remembering correctly, maybe it was just through the 90s, was this guy who would go back in time and sort of take over someone's consciousness. Like he would replace them for a time and inhabit their body for a period, a critical period in their life, to quote, set right what once went wrong. And so he would often show up in somebody's body and be in this really weird situation, like he's having sex with someone, or he's like, the president or whatever. And suddenly he's like very confused and disoriented. So he would go, "Oh boy," and that was like the cold open would always end with him saying, "Oh boy." And so later he plays Captain Archer on Star Trek, and he gets visited by this time traveler from the future who has a lot more certainty than he does about what's going on and also about what this is. And so this image has taken on to mean a lot more than it did when I first deployed it in this community. We've got a manifesto. We integrate faith and reason, intellect and intuition, mysticism and science, philosophy and spirituality in service to discovering, if you haven't already, discerning, as in distinguishing clearly, blooming and blossoming, as in lighting the fuck up. Now, some of you have already had caffeine, so you might not need any mystical experiences today. Our hearts, souls, and minds. So, not just mind, right? We're very mindy in here. We mind our minds well here. We choose to mind our mind effectively. Whereas the mind, what is it? A wonderful servant and a terrible master. I'm sure you've heard this. The mind, uh, integrated with heart and soul from direct, nourishing, visceral, palpable, personal experience of God, truth, and love, is a channel for that God, truth, and love into life. Destiny's here. That's great. I'm surprised and delighted. All right, so we compassionately listen. What an epic background. I'm not sure whose background wins, but that one's on the list. Good to see you. Welcome. We compassionately being the operative word, listen, receive, and invite any and all expressions, perspectives, and experiences that are producing epic as fuck fruits spiritually, financially, existentially, relationally, and emotionally at this table. Ideally, there's like a constellation, right? Look, it's a constellation in the sky. It's a heart. Oh, cute. So the constellation of those fruits points to something, not just one. Again, what looms large in the background for me lately is that a dear friend of mine who led me into the experience of God and love is now being investigated by the FBI and being called a fraudster and a con man and a villain by even, I found out yesterday, by some of the people who dedicated their whole lives to living in his off grid, self sustainable village. And I'll leave his name in the silence. I vote his victory. I pray for him. I still have trouble believing what is being said about him. But just because someone has spiritual fruit and financial fruit does not necessarily mean they're someone worth following, no matter how much they claim.
People are complicated, that's for sure.
People are complicated. We could do a whole journey. By the way, I wanted to let you all know I've launched a podcast associated with this community. It's called the Gnostic Knife Fight. And I'm interviewing individuals, having them share their stories. It's sort of the Mystic Krewe in a more focused one-to-one fashion. And that podcast will actually be launched to the general public along with the book, The Gnostic Knife Fight, which I intend to finish by the end of this year. It's not going to be the end to the Gnostic. Thank you, Destiny. Not the end to the Gnostic Knife Fight, but it'll be until now, right? Until this portion of the journey. And the prologue starts with, oh, two of my friends killed themselves after this retreat where I thought I saw God, and what does this all mean? So anyway, full credit where it's due. This next piece to the manifesto comes from that man who we vote victory for. So while I may see a 6 and you may see a 9, and usually, historically, where we would go with you see a 6, I see a 9. Oh, okay. Well, come over here. Maybe you'll see something slightly different, but it'll both be true. Well, okay, that's useful because then we can both actually have an experience. I accept that what you say to be true is true for you, and there may be a truth that's deeper than either of what of us is seeing. We are also open to the possibility of an objective truth. The 9 was actually authored as a 9, and it might be useful and helpful to find that out. So, since love lovingly, I had to learn this on a retreat in Mexico in 2021. I was not being very loving when I was confronting dysfunction. That's why the lovingly adverb is in there. Since love lovingly confronts dysfunction, we open ourselves to the possibility of growth and upgrade. The implication for the rest of this sentence, by the way, is that there may be something that is not functional, not we being intrinsically dysfunctional, but something in us, something of us that is not fully aligned as a clear lens or as a window on a lighthouse, right? The idea is that there's a light coming into us and then through us out into the world. This is another earthwaking distinction, credit where it's due. And so the point of this community is through dialogue, discussion, experiment, experience, and what was it? Being forged in the fire of becoming. That was something I got through Abram one time. That we will be better channels, stronger, clearer, cleaner, more powerful channels for love to flow through so that we can impact everyone even better and uplift everyone. So we open ourselves to the possibility of growth and upgrade. And we've been around for a year, y'all. So thank you for that. That's you. You did that. I mean, I invited people, but you kept showing up. So, for a year we've been growing and upgrading, and I can feel it in my nervous system. I can feel it in the distinctions and how I speak of things and how I relate to people, and even in some of my leaders who I would have looked up to. Like I've seen growth in their capacity to hold me in my skepticism and inquiry and curiosity without needing me to collapse into their frame, which is awesome. Now, one of my friends and leaders in that aspect, I kept asking him questions and he ignored the questions, whereas he answered everyone else's. And I was like, looks like you avoided my questions because they were uncomfortable. I'm not going to be a part of this container until you answer my questions. So I laid down that line recently. But we're going beyond our preconceptions, our presumptions, and our preferences into our highest choice, alignment, and service to the world. And we're here to forge and be forged in the fire of becoming who we truly and deeply are through fearless and relentless inquiry, experiment, and activation of alignment towards God, truth, and love. If that resonates for you, feel free to come off a mute and yell out with me. We are the Mystic Krewe. 1, 2, 3.
We
We
are the
are the
Mystic
Mystic
Krewe.
Krewe. All right, she's even got the fist up in the air. That's great. Thanks. I feel so seen. Let us pray. to the mystery, to God. Everybody bring your right hand to your physical heart. I'm going to take a deep breath in. Let it go. And again. All the way down and then all the way up again with this deepest, strongest breath. God, I pray your guidance, your grace, your gifts, your generosity, your presence among us. Take me, take us as egos out of the way in service to the free play of that love, that truth, that which you are. Shine and activate in and through us. May more be made of us than we can be made of ourselves. Weave us together in a way that creates a beautiful tapestry that only a perspective outside the picture could see. Remembering that no matter what we've seen, no matter who we are, we can't see the picture while we're inside of it. Expressing from a willingness to surrender into guidance and into a trust in the egregore we feed and awaken here together. Calling also support and specific insight from Ruach HaKodesh and Yeshua HaMashiach. In the name of God, love, and truth. Amen. All right. So we've got some cool stuff to talk about today. I just wanted to give a playing field and then we'll talk about God. Right? So thank you for showing up. You could be anywhere doing anything. I'm committed that this be fun and valuable. So if there's any way we can upgrade the flow of things to make it more fun and more valuable. Jonathan, for example, last time he was like, get done with the preamble quicker. And I was like, all right, all right. So within the next 3 minutes, we'll be done with the preamble. Then we'll talk about God. So what I found is there's a philosophical playing field, and Abram is worth crediting for this image, made with napkin. Cool. I know nothing about napkin, but I know that it makes good images, apparently. So there's the soldier, excuse me, the soldier over here, affirmation, belief, what we trust in, what we know to be true or believe we do. Then there's the hunchback. And you can hear in that name, the hunchback is like, all right, well, I'm having trouble walking because I'm doubting things. The very ground that I'm walking on might disappear as I eviscerate it through discussion and debate, new evidence. So on this side, there's a willingness to play from the hunchback. And on this side, there's unqualified, enthusiastic, relentless affirmation without any doubt. So you could almost draw kind of like a yin yang between these two, but I see more open inquiry on this side. So I see us as kind of closer to this side. And then I see cults on the other side, rigid dogma, demanding unwavering devotion to a leader and their particular image or understanding or interpretation or worldview or frame. And then there's religion, which is established doctrines and rituals, enshrining and crystallizing codes at best, and structures of disempowering authority at worst, putting caps on people's energetic capacity, putting caps on people's freedom to explore, experiment, and experience. And then we get this sort of inflection point because it's all kind of the same thing. It's just to what degree do we hold it tightly or lightly? And then we go into spirituality and mysticism, which there was always a spiritual or a mystical core in most religions until they got taken over by imperial authorities. Ashoka with Buddhism, Constantine with Christianity. I'm sure there are more examples, but those are the ones I remember. And so we can dig up, dig out, excavate, articulate, and then use, like activate in ourselves a direct experience of God, truth, and love. And from there be nurtured in a way that perhaps the King James Version of the Bible never will. At least that's been my experience so far. I had the thought recently, I was like, why does Andres read from the King James Version? And I was like, oh, Yeah, if your personal brand is a, hey, I've got secrets and initiations to lead you through, and I love the man, by the way, but it's secrets and initiations. Of course, you're going to choose the most arcane, esoteric, difficult to understand, thick with old and middle English version of the Bible, because then that continues to push people away from an easy application of it, and they're just like confused all the time. Now, is that by design? Maybe the King James version actually is the right one. Maybe God designed that one and all the other translations are full of shit. I don't know. That's something we could spend the next 2 hours talking about, and we're not going to today. But so then we get into from spirituality and mysticism into like metaframes and questioning like, okay, what does it mean that spirituality and mysticism work? How do we know what's actually going on underneath that? And what I think this community injects into the world of personal development, spirituality, mysticism is a willingness to question and to acknowledge that those things may all be true. You took ayahuasca, you saw Jesus, and then you had a great conversation and he told you to do something that changed your life, or Buddha, or Tatiana was talking last time about her experience of Krishna, right? And then her whole life changes, or she sees a rose and becomes a priestess of the temple, right? Okay, so that may be real and true, but it may not actually mean what you think it does. And everything that my friend John experienced might have been real and true, but it might have just been a hallucination. It might have been a hallucination that powered him, that fueled him. It also might have been Satan. How do we know? I think it's important to ask. And that's where philosophy comes in, exploring ideas with an open mind and getting willing to go underneath the affirmation, the exclamation point that even still exists in spirituality and mysticism. And then finally, to complete this, where we get to is magic and transformation or coaching, right? Transformation or coaching occasionally seems to use frames from spirituality, even religion, to support people in having more of what they desire and having a more flourishing, thriving, thrilling, alive, enlivened life. And that's where I came into this whole picture. I left religion and was like, all right, I'm all the way to philosophy. And now I'm coming back to spirituality and mysticism through philosophy, and transformation, coaching, magic, they're kind of around the same spot, except magic may actually be dealing with demons that will send you to hell. Fine, there's a whole conversation there. Manifestation may actually be you inviting demons or spirits that are not of God to bring you stuff. And from the Catholic exorcist videos I've been watching recently, oh, demons are wise. They have a lot of skill and capacity. But all right. So that finishes how the rest of today is going to go. We'll talk about God. Jonathan wanted like maybe 4 or 5 minutes or something per person first to start. So we'll each share what we believe about God, how we define God, and why. Like, how do we know that that is true and not just some fucking bullshit hallucination we pulled out of our asshole? Number one. Number two, we'll go into more of this discussion of the soldier and the hunchback and whatever flows through from our discussions of God, etc. Sorry, I went over by 3 minutes. I intended to be done in 20. Next time, Jonathan. Thanks for standing for brevity and precision. Abram says, could it be both or neither? It could. That's my point. All right. So, who wants to go first into the realm of discussion of God and distinguishing what God is for you and how you know? Period. Question mark. I mean, I can do that. I can
I mean,
go.
I can go first if you want me to. You want me to lead off this? Or do you want
Yeah,
me to go
yeah,
last? I think I'm
absolutely.
gonna have a very different perspective, but I don't know where do you think I should fit in?
I
You want to
mean,
be a leadoff batter?
you go.
All
Go
right, all
King.
right. All right, I got 4 minutes. Okay.
Sure.
Um, all right, I'm getting to drop into my body and talk about what I actually know from this vantage point right here.
Mm.
Um, I have an observer and I'm in a field and I label things. And that's what life is, right? Um, so from that perspective, that's where I start because that's what I can like validate. And then I've run experiments, right? Then notice patterns that happen in my field of awareness, and they're based on sometimes how I look at life, like what distinctions am I using, what assumptions, what behaviors. And I actually think well, God is my first definition of God is there's only God. And my second definition is God can be diced up into distinctions, parts, aspects, whatever. And the activity of life is about the interplay between the parts and the aspects, including the observer and the different parts, and it creates experiences. And at some level, that's all life is, to reduce it into something simple. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the mystical because what do I believe there's like some guy like Jesus or the Father, the Buddha, who's like moving shit around? No, I don't. I don't think that exists. I think it's default. This design seems to be by all I can assume is it's default because it's happening, right? And so non-existence can't exist because by definition. So what I think is the what I've discovered through working with different teachers is the transpersonal is real, but that's actually like in the subtle design of life, whatever came about. And so there's something like field community, and it works in I mean, am I a master of this? I'm getting, I went from not knowing it's a thing to getting trained in different dimensions of it. But I know, like Lewis and I studied conscious language. There's something about saying words and putting your intention out there. But the precision matters a lot. It has to align with the actual patterns of life. They're actually, when these energies bounce off each other, they're actually repeatable patterns that you can see over and over and over again. And there's a lot of them. And so, and different ones are useful in different situations. And I know a lot of them, but I'm sure I'm going to learn more. I'm always discovering more. Sometimes I discover more just by looking, and sometimes I read a book. Someone says, "Have you thought about looking at this perspective?" I'm like, "Oh, that's kind of cool." And then I usually ask, when would this map be useful? Or when, because usually I've never seen a map that's useful 100% of the time. They're like, the map isn't the territory. It's like, I don't know. I don't have like one map that fits them all. But contextually, specifically, like wealth dynamics is useful in a particular situation. You want to get familiar with like some of your natural superpowers in relation to career. Boom, that's a good one. It can show you some strengths and weaknesses, and Comet's a good model for that. But and so I'm getting to finish with my core philosophy on high performance because I think to really feel I'm really with this question of being one with life as a feeling, and to me, it's really come down to this. I defined what my values are, my integrity, my highest dreams, and then I define like so what I think some of the patterns are, and then I don't know, I feel this containment. If it's working, moving me towards like slowly to my step, I feel one with the patterns and flow of life, and I see it as a continuous improvement that doesn't end. All right, I got it in.
Well done. I think,
Yeah, ethics.
yeah, I think you did it. It's good. It's good. Appreciate you. Go
Thanks.
team. Great first base hit. That might have even been a double, maybe a triple. We'll see where we're going. Um, I was gonna say leaders go first, but then I was gonna say in my regard, leaders eat last. So the trite little pieces of coaching they contradict each other. Who's next? It's not me. That's what I'm saying. I'm gonna go last.
You like to go Destiny?
You can go, Abram. I'll go after you.
Sounds good. All right. Lewis, just for brevity, give me the prompt again?
What is God? And how do we know?
It's a good question. And what isn't God? Maybe the question too. And we'll just kind of tag on what Jonathan said, but I think bigger than that, like I feel like what God isn't, and I think this is a good tag to kind of to observe the question from is God is not a thought or an idea or a thought or an idea about what God may or may not be. And I feel like much of world history that has been God for civilization. And I think I want to premise, I guess, what I'm sharing with this one image. I probably shared it before here, but I think it sums it up pretty well. Um, we are the observer, as Jonathan said, but ultimately seeing, experiencing the cosmic, experiencing ourselves, experiencing the universe within ourselves, the oneness. It's a choice. Whether it's like, lightning doesn't care if we think thunder is faster than it, and God doesn't care whether we think this pair of scissors is God or a spaghetti monster is God. It's like our idea, and it's like the idea of belief and being our ego and the tribalism behind belief is really what civilization has lived with. This idea of God is ego lives in the crowd. It becomes tribalism. My God's better than your God. You're wrong, I'm right. And as soon as we put God in a box, the mystical cosmic element of what God is, and when my experience is lost. As soon as you try to cage it and define it intellectually, you're already lost God. So for me, God is something bigger than we could articulate, something bigger than we can understand in our minds, something bigger than we can. It's something that is. That word God points to something grander and greater, and something that created the cells, whether they were created or they've always been here. The mystery in that very thing, the chicken and egg of the universe and of ourselves, is the mystery of the universe, and we can't understand it. And I think all we can do is experience it, experience ourselves as a divine experience. We are the universe experiencing itself, and we have God within us. And every trial we go through also has God. In that we could get a trial and a fork in the road, and we can cry and we can die. We can just die there in the mud and just give up, or we can choose to find the lesson, find the spiritual strength to keep going and persevering. So I think God, as succinctly and elegantly as I could say, is everything, and is our choice to experience what makes that question matter. Yeah, I mean, I could go further in the semantics of it, but it's like God is greater than we can articulate in this 4-minute prompt, but he's also, it's just there, or it's there, or it's all things, and it's us living in this body in this meat bag that we call ourselves. I think it's just us experiencing something greater, and the whole everything that moves the stars is in us, and it's in our neighbor, and it's in everyone we know and love, and everyone we know and don't love. I yield. I yield my time.
You yielded the last couple seconds. All right. Great. Beautiful. Another base hit. I love it. I think they're all going to be base hits, honestly. I don't. This is just a conversation. Destiny, you're next. Let's go.
Okay. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. So, whoa, my body. Okay. God for me is communal. It's a felt experience. God is the unified source, the benevolent intelligence of Holy Father, Holy Mother God for me. And this eternal union that everything comes from. I feel like for me, my journey has always been really deep into what that means and where I get Holy Father, Holy Mother from. It's really like Holy Mother as divine love and Holy Father as divine law and the organizing true original principles that we were created from. And yes, for me, God is not everything. I feel that God is love, truth, and trust. And that we were created with an original design in a very beautiful, perfected way. And now we are discerning what is true with our original design and what is not. And there's a lot that's not. And so my relationship with God has always been forged through my experience, revelation, and being able to cross-reference that with what I see in nature, what I see in life, what I have experienced in communion and in love with Yeshua and my teachers, Yeshua being the main and one and only, really, teacher. And yes, because Yeshua is this crystalline embodiment of what it means to be fully in alignment with God, fully in alignment with kingdom, and the original design that we were created with. And so that's what God is to me. It's not the distorted version of life. It is the true original essence of life that was always intended for us to experience all the way through. And yeah, so it can go so deep. But for me, that's what God is. God is those three things: love, truth, and trust. Period. Anything else that is not that, anything else that is woven through fear, or like there's so many lines that need to be drawn because we're in a time that's really important right now. So we can embody the truth of who we are. And so for me, God is not everything. God is not everything. But God is the truth, the love, and the trust that is available to everything. What else wants to come through right now? There is something that has always come through to me over these last few years, and it is that divine devotion is what we come from, which is divine love and divine law in union, in marriage. And we are divorcing the mirage of what's not true. But divine devotion is the law of love and motion, and that's what life is meant to be. It's meant to flow that way. From my own revelations, that's how it's been brought through to me. So the simplest, that's I could go so deep, but the simplest way to put it is that, yeah, the law of love and motion, that's God.
Epic. Let's give everybody a hand before I go. Yay. Oh my goodness. So I love this.
Home run. Lewis, a lot of pressure. Don't strike out.
Yeah,
He's got a
no,
lot of hits in a row. Don't screw it up for the team.
that was a home run before I go. That was a home run because it was a direct and specific disagreement with someone else. It was lovingly done and deliberately and delightfully articulated, like not, oh, and you're wrong, idiot, asshole, whatever. It was like, yeah, no. And so that's where this conversation complicates in a useful way. And
I thought it was beautiful. I know I said it was everything, but I think they're all valid. But that's in the discussion period.
yeah. So we'll come to that. We'll come to that. And I'll give my share very succinctly, and then I'll go into complications and sort of reweave the points that you all have shared with some others into a opening of the web, and then we can go whatever way the web leads us, or wherever way the weaver guides us. um, okay, so in 2020, quarter 3, I manifested my first $5,000 coaching client. Sharing not to impress, but to impress upon you. What happened afterwards was this woman, Tommy Main, came to an event called Awaken Life Live. She said it was the most important thing she got out of coaching with me. She invited a friend of hers, Jan, who invited a friend of hers through email to the same event. Around the same time, I was manifesting a new partner. I was like, I want to meet and connect with and fall in love with someone who's better than I can imagine. And at that time, unbeknownst to me, a woman who I had fawned over, drooled over, stared at for most of physics class through senior year of high school who went on one date with me to the senior prom and decided I smelled bad and I had no chance with her. Um, I thought I was never going to see her again. And she was praying to God for specific support. She was saying, God, send me what I need to deal with what's going on inside of me, or I will kill myself. And that actually happened a week after. It was within the week after she decided she wanted to manifest a new partner as well. And so Jan emailed her, and she, after 15 years I hadn't seen her, had no clue about this connection between these several people, showed up at Awaken Life Live. I connected with her. We fell in love. It became The Treasure of Souls Touching, a hurricane, a pandemic, and a stolen car, which is the book about the adventure that she and I had together. And that was so crazy to me because I was like, wait, that wasn't just me. I obviously didn't causally, scientifically, materially influence or impact reality to chess master that all into place. And it didn't just satisfy my need, desire, manifestation, it satisfied hers and also gave her what she needed. Now, what I'm about to give is an interpretation of what happened. It is a story about what happened, but it's a story that's pretty easy to tell. That there was a God or being that put us together, that we fed our intentions and desires into, that spat back out a orchestration like a symphony of however many variables in order, starting probably from 13.6 billion years of cosmic history ago to today, to have everything come together in exactly that way. Now, when I look back, as I've investigated Christian mysticism and interpretations, I start thinking, well, wait a second. Why would the Christian God manifest and give me 3 separate women through manifestation for me to fornicate with? Because that's not the divine law. That's not the divine design. So, what I used to use as my primary reason for believing in God now has been complicated, now has become unsettled, has become disturbed. I used to believe God is the intelligent designer, the uncaused cause, the first mover. This is the God of the philosophers from St. Thomas Aquinas and his 5 ways for arguing for the existence of God. God is the being that we see when we look into the eyes of this man who, walked the earth and did, taught, and thought some strange, crazy shit. Great book, by the way. Great book, also terrible book. We'll talk about it maybe. And what is God? I'm not sure, but I've had enough experiences of things working out better than I can imagine, and miracles, unexpected synchronicities, serendipities, that I believe something is going on there beyond our saline eyes and our physical brains and our minds. Period. I did it in 4 minutes. All right.
It was a bunt single. No, just kidding.
What? It was
I
what?
was just joking. A bunt single. I was
Bunt
just being
single.
silly.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh.
yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah. You like the baseball thing. Okay. So there's a lot of questions that I have. And feel free to weave yours in and we can capture them in the chat.
Mhm.
The first one is that how people use the word God often throughout history
Mhm.
justified incredible painful behavior. For example, God is oneness, and there's no such thing as separate people to do wrong to. There's no judgment. Well, okay, then a teacher can sleep with their student and justify it as the teacher and student, we're all one and we're all God. It doesn't matter. God is whatever feels expansive, or whatever is expansive is God. Well, I'm going to just cheat on my partner, regardless of the pain that it causes them. Or God is abundance, and abundance flows to those aligned with it. So I'm not going to pay my vendors. I'm going to ghost my collaborators, and I'm going to blow through debt, reframing it as you need to trust the universe to provide. Or God is my highest self, and my highest self already knows. So every impulse of my highest self that I act on gets laundered into a revelation. And if you disagree with me, well, you're just not connected to your highest self. And I get to be immune from feedback or criticism or connection. You can start seeing why there are real consequences to how we use the word. And it can't be everything, anything, or nothing, because then everyone is justified in being an asshole or launching crusades against you because of the color of your skin. Highly unlikely for us specifically, but it's a worthwhile consideration. So one question is, how do we know what God is? Because knowledge is justified true belief. It isn't just belief. People often believe that what they believe is true because they believe it. Well, big news. Often we believe shit that's not true. And I believe that of me as much as I believe that of you because I believe it is a way of respecting you as someone who's come to the table humbly in inquiry, as we asked in our first question.
What if that's a great thing though?
That what?
The idea that I feel like there's a lot of heaviness in this idea that people might be fooling themselves, but I think people are 100% truthful and fooling themselves at the same time without any contradiction, because life's complicated. It's got layers to it. Like one perception you have is actually true for where you are, and then there might be a deeper truth or multiple truths simultaneously. And I don't know. I've fallen in love with that process. So for me, it's not really one's right, wrong, or bad. It's just like and
Yeah.
flowing with life. You know what I mean?
It might not be wrong or bad. It just might have consequences. So,
Absolutely.
everybody has the right to believe whatever they want about
I
God
be-
and act in
I
any way
believe in the
about that.
consequences. Yeah.
Everybody has every right to believe whatever they want about God and to take action on that. Well, what if you were someone in one of the Twin Towers and those people who believed in God, a version of God, decided to fucking kill you? Or some guy on the street decides that you specifically need to die tomorrow and they need to blow your head off because God told them. Did they have the right to, like, okay, we can't interfere because they have a unique special belief in God? Or can we say, can we be curious, like, okay, can you justify your belief? The knowledge is justified true belief, which means we have an argument, a reason, or evidence for it. It's true, like it's not bullshit made up hallucination. And we can point to certain people and say they are, in fact, hallucinating. We can look at insane people and we can say that's schizophrenic who's hearing the voices in their head. I saw a really great depiction on YouTube of what it's like to be schizophrenic. You can tell those voices, they might be demons for sure, but they're not actual, like they're not real in the way that someone is actually experiencing reality. And then belief is where our experience and articulation of the truth corresponds to reality. So we might have a belief, but it might not correspond. So my argument is that it's safer, healthier, wiser, and actually makes us more effective when our beliefs are both justified and true. And so that's why I think it's important to propose the idea that maybe the word God can adequately represent or effectively point to something worthwhile. Maybe it's not just the bitch of whoever happens to be using it. And the words have consequences. And so if we're just going to say it's a mystery and we can't know, then none of us has any right to talk about it. None of us, if it were a mystery and we can't know, then we can't know that either. If we're non-contradictory, right? Otherwise, we contradict ourselves. How do we define?
If I can
Yes.
interject with that, how can
Yeah.
we know?
Yeah.
Well,
So go
just
ahead.
because
Yes.
what you just said, there's a lot of depth to because what's missing is a piece of the story. And that piece of the story is what happens after and before we die, or after. Sorry, my brain is catching up with my healing from my sickness. But before we're born and after we die, we don't have that part of the puzzle. And a lot of the things assume knowledge. Like I spent most of my life as an outsider from religion and church, and it was all like everyone else had a lot of passion ideas, and I was just always a skeptic. But until I was skeptical of my own skepticism, was I even willing to consider spirituality, let alone God? And I think it's healthy. Probably one of the healthiest things I've ever done is being skeptical of my own skepticism, because I've never been too overly. I wouldn't join a cult so quickly. I wouldn't so I'm. I mean, or maybe if it's the right cult, maybe I would. So who knows? But that being said, the knowledge is the in my experience is the pitfall, is the issue, because it's you could get caught in a loop of saying, well, how do we know that we know, or how we know the truth? And it almost loses value to say knowledge of God is the same thing as an experience of God, because I could know I've seen pastors and people speaking um, before like a body of a community of a spiritual community where they're speaking truth with their words, but it's obvious that they've like it would be like a airplane instructor saying how to land a plane, but they've obviously never done it themselves. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, it does. And I will restrict myself from responding until Destiny has had a chance to weigh in. She, she, yeah, go ahead.
It's interesting because I was just I opened up to a verse in the Bible yesterday and kind of dissected it and went into it. And I was like, oh yeah, okay. But definitely speaking on proximity is not the same thing as embodiment. So to know something or to have knowledge of something is not the same thing as to actually embody what that thing is. So, I agreed. Like people can put it up, but not necessarily be of it. And that's something that I think is definitely, yeah, it's really interesting because embodiment is a huge thing, right? And that's what Yeshua teaches as well, is that like you know me, you've heard of, you've been with me, you've learned from me, but are you actually embodying that? Are you actually embodying that? And so I think that is universal, right? Yeah.
You complete? You want more?
No, I'm complete.
So good. So, what we're doing here is we're dancing the soldier into the hunchback until it's a pendulum swing between one and the other, right? Because it's more important to allow doubt into our certainty and to allow certainty into our doubt than to divorce them, right? So, Abram was skeptical of his skepticism. I'm willing to be skeptical even of my mysticism. I have experienced so many things, like moments where I embodied something and then I was like, wow, I call this God, I call this love. And then I was immediately sold something by the person who had helped me to induce it, namely another feature of their program or their product or their community. And so, and then you get people who experienced and embodied Kensho in Japan, and then the emperor would tell them, now go commit kamikaze against American pilots like with your planes. So I agree. It needs to be something embodied. I mean, to quote Christ himself, many will say, Lord, Lord, but and they cast out demons in my name, but they won't enter into the kingdom of heaven because they didn't have the fullness of it, the fullness of the embodiment of faith or trust or relationship. And so arguably, love and do what thou wilt, St. Augustine famously wrote. Like, I'd rather somebody embody love than have full understanding of the labyrinthine dogmatic canons of the Catholic Church. Like, I'd rather them be a kind person. And you get that from some of their greatest saints, like Therese of Lisieux. And you can, Abram, absolutely get lost in epistemological foundationalism. Like, let me get more knowledge about this thing. And how do I know? And where do I find it out? And let me question how I know what I think I know. And yeah, the other thing though is that can knowledge help us move towards embodiment? And does not embodiment always start as knowledge first of something worth seeking or aspiring to? I think it does, whether it be love or God or truth or mystical attainment or experience. And I think also don't downplay the extent to which we could potentially get information about the afterlife through non near death experiences. Or there's a whole book called The Case for Heaven. It's a fairly weak set of arguments. I mean, I could invalidate most of them, but still, it points to something. Like there might be data that could drive us into having a belief in the afterlife, and I think that data is worthwhile. I'm going to end my piece with this, and then Jonathan, you're next again. Um, the fact of the matter is, if I am on the freeway and there is a 16 wheeler coming at me, and you see it, but I don't. Uh, I would rather you tell me about that 16 wheeler so I can get out of the way and not get hit and die. Right? Does everybody agree? You'd probably prefer to know the truth if it would cause you harm for you not to know, right? Yeah. So in Christian mythology, so to speak, that 16 wheeler is hell. And in common New Age parlance and mysticism, that 16-wheeler is like the lack of peace, love, and joy that you can reclaim through certain practices or embodiment or whatever. And so I think it's very important we stay open, stay curious, stay rigorous. Jonathan, your ball.
Okay. I want to go back a step to you keep using the word truth. How do we know it? Something's true? Because the if we need to have to me, I'm going to talk to me about discernment and how I know something's true, and it's very scientific, honestly. It's being with accepting that I'm observing. I have assumptions about the way the life works, conscious and unconscious. Information comes, experience comes in my field. I make sense of it through my filters. Different experiences add up. I reflect on it, and then I evaluate it against some standards, like a value and a metric, and then I make a judgment depending on, how useful it is. And so I think a lot of times people just talk past each other because they're not talking about what data are you collecting, what assumptions are you using to collect that data, what do you actually value, why, and then we just talk about what our truths are God, but we're not getting into the weeds of how we even came to those conclusions. And I think it's in those weeds that we can I don't know, have a deeper dialogue. I think that I just want to bring that up.
I'm liking this revolving door, so we can just keep the order. Abram, you're next if you want to respond.
I mean, there's it's a lot here. I'm still kind of. Well, I mean, this is the thing is the intellectual idea. Yes, well, one of the things you said, Lewis, is you're saying is intellectual. I don't remember how you said it, but it's like into our intellect and our thoughtful experience, like our discerning of what happens to us. We can find God through our knowledge of what happens, of and I mean that could go back to ancient societies or like um, religions that believe in rain dances and you know things that affect the weather or affect and I think ultimately the functionality of religion and spirituality is asking the same question as psychology, sometimes philosophy, is how do I live in a how do I live in a world that has malevolence? How do I experience the least pain and the most joy for me? And that's the other question is, are the fruits of the spirit of God, of religion, of spirituality for us as sovereign individuals to experience, which I will say in human history is very, very short amount of, it's very short that I as an individual was even a thing that I could like, I want to do what I want to follow my dream. Like that's not a very old concept in human history. And so, like, is it for us to experience, or is it for the future to experience? Is it for our children, our children's children to experience? Is it for the humanity to evolve into bodiless spirit cloud creatures? Like what? That's what I yield my time. The congressman from Texas.
The congressman from Tennessee, actually. I mean, right? You're
Yeah. Well, I was yielding
oh,
to the congressman
I don't
from
know,
Texas.
Destiny. Do you want to be a congresswoman or a senator?
I don't know.
Senator Amidala, that's who you remind me of.
Oh yeah. Dig it. Um, yeah, I agree with you, Abram. I agree. I think that oh, I know that we're here to experience the true fruits of the spirit for sure. I think it's definitely happening like now. We're in the transition point. We're in the crossover point. That's what has been coming through for me over these years. We are crossing over into like a whole different experience here on Earth. We're moving through the discernment phase right now, but there's a lot that's returning. A lot of insight is returning to everybody the truth. It's already written inside you. It's written inside your heart. And so it's just, the more we align and the more that we come into a space of embodiment and like living in a divine way, which is basically, right, if we're looking at science and biology, it's just living in alignment with how you're designed. That's it. Living in alignment with how you're designed, taking care of yourself, taking care of this body that we are entrusted with. We have it. That's something that's very real. We're here. And our body operates in a specific way. It needs the correct nutrients, it needs sunlight, it needs all these things. And it it's all encompassing. When we act in that way and we continue to build in that way and we continue to discover and remember, and knowledge is a big part of that. We can collect a whole bunch of data, we can bring in a whole bunch of data. We just have to apply the data and then we'll become the wisdom of it, right? And the wisdom is the kingdom. It's the manifestation of that, of your choice to embody those principles that you've learned, to embody what you've received, right? That's what I always look at is like, oh, wow. And so I look into nature and I look into myself and I'm like, okay, these things are reflecting what's happening here. These things reflect what we're made to do, this energy of circulation and reciprocity and this like ongoing exchange of holiness. And we're coming back into that energy of sanctity and like, right, it's like, wow, this body, what a sacred thing to have, to be trusted with, and what a sacred thing to be trusted with dominion on this earth. And what a sacred thing to be able to communicate. Like it says so many times in so many ways, you know, look into nature, connect with nature, and you will find God there because it's the same. Like it carries the principles of what Holy Father, Holy Mother, God in my terms is. It carries those principles. You can't have a seed without the soil. You can't have these different things. It's all reciprocity. It's all symbiotic. So when we live in that way, and as we continue to live in that way, then we will absolutely be living in a completely different world. Definitely our children, for sure. I know for us, for sure, too. It's a process, but it's happening. That's my heart knows that for sure. Okay, Lewis, I think you're up now.
I love this. You guys enjoy, y'all enjoying the revolving door version of this? I think it's pretty cool. So Jonathan's like, no, I wish I could talk more often. And
No, I don't actually. I wish that we were all talking about one thing instead of like we've kind of done this like pop in where we're all saying the same things, but we're not doing any depth into one specific avenue. I'm kind of craving that.
we're
What if
smart.
we all just took our things off of mute and talked?
Well, we need to focus the talk.
A
Yeah,
focus
because it's
point.
a little because
Yeah.
God's a
Okay,
big topic. Like, what are we talking about? What are we trying? It would be more to me. It'd be more. I'm not unhappy that we did what we did, but if I'm being, I don't want to people please. I want to be authentic.
yeah,
Could we have like at least experiment with like a 20-minute dive into something specific?
let's
This is
do
an
that next.
experiment.
Let's do that next. I'll say my piece, and then we'll have seeded the ground for a like free for all because that's what you're asking for. Um,
No, I want so specific. I want to be contained in a topic. Um,
Well, we're talking about God. How do we prove and demonstrate what God is? How do we know? What does that mean? What is the impact? What's the consequence? So,
Okay, you just named like 20 questions. It's a lot of questions.
yeah, I
Uh,
mean they're all part of the same fabric. They're all part of the same tapestry. You can't just claim God is everything or that God is the order of the universe expressed in scripture without there being meaningful consequences. I think we all get what's at stake here is peace, love, and joy for all the world. And not just us, but our children and
well, maybe that's a different question. Maybe the better question would be like, what is going to bring abundance to the planet? And
maybe,
then what is our how does our definition of God contribute to that? Like that's a little bit tighter. You
maybe,
know,
maybe,
yeah. I'm
maybe.
not saying it
Although
has to be it, but I'm trying to contain it a little so we're not all like picking at different threads with different it just feels it felt good, but also I don't know, I'm craving another level of coherence as possible.
well, we'll take a vote and see if people want to move in that direction next once I've said my piece on this last round. And then
Okay.
if that's the question, then we'll pursue that. But I want to pick up on something like, okay, if God is the ordering sort of divine law and divine truth behind the universe, teasing out and discerning what that is and what that means. So I can quote Romans 1:19, because that which may be known of God is manifest in them, for God hath shown it to them. For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and godhood, so that they are without excuse. And the C.S. Lewis argument for the existence of God is, wherever we see a moral law, there must be a moral lawgiver. And pretty much everybody on the planet, I mean, at the very least, feels compelled to virtue signal. Like, maybe ideally practice virtue, but at the very least, virtue signal, which means that there are things that they see that they probably should do and things that they see that they probably shouldn't. But what is that? How were we designed? Within 500 milliseconds, the male brain picks up on any attractive woman in the room, labels her hot or not, before his conscious mind has any ability to intervene or judge what to do with that. And he's left with that regardless of whether he's married, regardless of whether he's partnered. And then, yeah, you could argue the penis going into the vagina is productive, whereas the penis going into somebody's asshole is not. So, natural law, the natural order of nature is that homosexuals should not practice homosexuality. That's where the Catholics end up, right?
But it
So,
gives people pleasure. So who says it doesn't do anything productive?
what it is not as productive, right? And I'm just giving
Okay.
space to the arguments. I'm not saying I necessarily agree with them, but same with kosher laws. Yeah, so if we don't eat certain things, we won't get as sick, maybe. And so I believe my words do describe something adequately. I believe when I say the word God, it is a pointer, it is a signifier of something. I'm not sure what that is. And then, Abram was talking about basically, do I have the right to go pursue whatever makes me feel good? I think, generally speaking, so long as it harms none of us, that there is enough, large enough phase space for each person to walk in whatever direction they want. I can spend the next year re-consuming every episode of Star Trek and every film. I was planning on this actually, and that probably won't harm anybody, except for those maybe who were supposed to be served by my larger purpose, if I was designed by God for such a thing, and I believe I am to some degree. But then individuals also have these existential kinks. Credit to Carolyn Elliott. Does anybody know about Carolyn Elliott? She was this epic teacher, and may she rest in peace. Like, she wrote the book Existential Kink, and she took her own life. And so, like, who knows what beliefs were rattling through her head about God or love or truth or demons or angels, whatever, that may or may not have led to that experience, or that choice. And anyway, I see what you're saying, Jonathan. I just gave another 5 different directions we could go potentially. So let's take a vote. Who would like a more focused discussion on a specific aspect or sub feature of the distinction of God? Yeah, I think
I'm neutral. I'm open
you're
for
neutral.
whatever flows.
Okay, okay.
Same. It depends what we're focused on. Yeah.
Depends
Yeah.
what we're focused on. Okay, yeah. Isn't harming or hurting everyone subjective? Yeah, some people might like pain. That's the whole point I brought up existential kink. But
Or what hurts them might be what they need that in that moment to learn or to move on or to heal.
yeah, so that's the other thing is, and this might be our jumping off point, Jonathan. So if you'll allow it with some grace and patience, everything happens for a reason and all things work for good tends to be the kind of thing that is spoken by someone who, well, the person who spoke it most in my life was about to ask people for money. And so that belief makes us feel better. But who does it tend to work out most for? Everything happens for a reason and all things work for good, and this is working out for me. Well, the ego of the one saying it. So my belief in God is the primal context. Like, I believe, and I was thinking this earlier today, God's got me. But that belief justify, let me back up. That belief supports me in taking more actions for my own good, and perceiving more opportunities for my own good to work out. And maybe it activates a vibration or a frequency that connects me to God, that has me available to receive in ways that I wouldn't otherwise be. I accept prosperity as my divine right. Marilyn Janae writes in Feel Free to Prosper, for example. So, like, yeah, the abundance for the world. Okay, if maybe we talk about that. If God created the universe, if God ordered nature, if God is not just everything, but the thing that designed me to, for example, when people get brain injuries, it's fascinating. the functions that would have happened in that part of the brain that got like lost or destroyed, they appear in another part of the brain, which means there's a design. There's an implementable matrix of functions that re-implements, it pivots to the available hardware. And so we look at that and we think, okay, that, either nature was really great or maybe God intended that so each person would still be a full person. So, when I look at the varied complexity and abundance in nature, if it was designed, then God, it behooves us to know what the fuck God intends it for so that we can align with the flow of that abundance and be better channels for it. And that's exactly what Artemis argues about the kingdom of God as expressed through Miles Monroe. He says, well, I've spent the past year dedicating my life to God and submitting and surrendering all I am to God. And that's part of why I just had a $50,000 launch for his sovereign health program. And I'm like, I'd like those results. Does that mean I should be Christian? Now, of course, he and I went to Catholic confession a week and a half ago. He got to go. There wasn't enough time for me, so I went back. When I went back, I didn't feel guilt going in. I didn't feel less guilty going out. I didn't feel better because of the thing. I was just like, ho hum. I talked to this old guy, this old priest who seemed to be grateful that there was a guy talking to him. And maybe I got some grace from God. So what is, even if it is true that there is a kingdom of heaven, and I lean in that direction, there is a kingdom of heaven that we can embody, that we can embrace, that we can activate, that will actually make us thrive better individually. We make more money. We'll be happier. We'll have a better impact. Then knowing what God is and what the kingdom of God means is critical to activating that channel, to making those sales, to feeling good now as the gift that I am to the world at the highest frequency available to me. So anyway, I think that's our question. How does knowing what God is bring us more abundance? Or if God is everything, then just go stick your head in a blender. It's all God anyway. I mean, like, it's
But that's
gonna
not what
feel.
God being everything means. That's
It it means that every experience you have is just equally God, and some are not better than others, or more desirable than others, right?
well, no. In every moment, anything can be interpreted from like an infinite number of perspectives. So they're all good and bad simultaneously. It's like if a primordial truth that I my direct experience is how can you have an experience without an observer and something to observe? Is it possible to have an experience without that?
No.
Right. So that's a fundamental property of existence itself. And from that, uh, different consciousness come up with different views, and what they think is true depends on, their biases and how their history and what their values. It's like so it's this idea of this, but that is a fundamental metaphysical truth of reality. Like it says, I start with building blocks, like what's metaphysically irrefutably true, as far as I can tell. I've never seen anyone come with an explanation that anything can happen outside of that. So if I start there, what I know to be true, and I know we make shit up, and and that's kind of how we test things out, right? A lot of the people we say with these malevolent or evil, well, maybe they're just bad discernment. And sometimes bad discernment is fueled by unconscious trauma playing out in ways. Because I think understanding how psychology works, which is not well known, is a big factor. Because if everyone has a consciousness, then our psychology is affecting like everything.
All right. Yeah, it looks like
But
it's a free for all. Destiny, did you have?
well, well, yeah. Go ahead, Destiny.
Yeah, so for me, it's like you have to, okay, this, and we want to go really deep. It's like we have to look at, okay, why are, why are there fractures then? Like, why is there those things? Like what you were just speaking on, Jonathan, like why are people acting in different ways? Like, because yes, you're right. We do need experience. We do need reflection. We do need to have these different pieces and parts
Hmm.
playing to see and to perceive and to, right, to learn. And something that's been alive for me for years now is like, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Is it natural to have to learn like that? And why? Why do we have to learn like that? Why do we have to learn by, playing these really large roles of polarity? Was that like the original intention of it? Or was there a fracture that happened at some point that everything after that continued to, fracture more, and then it brought us out of design. So now we are having temptations to do X, Y, and Z. Now these different things are pleasurable to us, right? And just because it brings you pleasure doesn't make it good. Just because, right? And so it's like, okay, but why? Where did we go? Like, what happened? And so that's what I've been praying about and receiving about for a while, and just like putting so many pieces together, because I'm not religious at all, at all. However, my direct connection with God, this is what has come through so strong, is that no, honey, for me, speaking on me, no, it's not. That's not natural. That's not normal. That's not actually how I created you. I created you perfect. So, like, the polarity, I call it a bi-wave experience. Like, right, we've been in this experience of polarity, all these drastic different textures of living, and evil, good, right? All these different things. And it's like in the beginning of my journey, I was like, wait, no, yes, everything is purposed. We can learn from everything, we can grow from everything. Like everything has a purpose. We're all like, these reflection points, and this person does this, but really it's a gift, it's an offering, because they're like allowing me to go through a certain process that I wouldn't have been able to go through if I didn't have that experience. And right, like one of you were saying in the beginning, it's like we go through different levels of awareness. And so it's important at different moments in life and on this planet, we have had to integrate certain concepts that then graduate us. I call it congratulations. You're graduating into another relational intelligence, right? So you learn and you grow from all those experiences, but at some point it's time to graduate, and it's time to come into a different relational experience with life. And so what happened for me was when I was coming to that, which is a crazy and interesting experience, I was like, wait a minute. Okay, so what made this all happen? Like, what made people start to relate to life in the way that we've been relating to life? Like, why is it a mystery? Why is it hidden? Like, why isn't the truth just resonating through all of us? Because no, for me, it's not the truth to it's a bit bypassy for me now to be like, oh yeah, like, whatever happens, it's all love. We can learn from it. It's great. No, that's not discernment for me. And this was a tough pill to swallow for me. It really was, because I was totally there. I was like, no, everything is good. Like, I know, like, evil is philanthropy at the highest level. Like, this, and it was interesting because I could experience within my body this compassion that was so incredibly important for me to have. And I feel like these perspectives, like that's what we're ultimately trying to touch back into, is this level of compassion that is like, no, you are valuable. And whatever it is that you're bringing to the table is valid. And that is a kind of compassion that is really supportive. And also, what comes must pass, and our compass must be reoriented towards truth. And that's where I've been. It's like, okay, well, if we go back, and I was praying about this and I received so much revelation about this. And then I've also been studying the Bible the last few years. And I was like, wait a minute. Okay. So back to like the beginning, because I look at the Bible as like an instruction set, also like, real life experiences, but more so like, hey, this is an instruction set to what happened and where you're going, how to move through it. And, law, not biblical law or human imposed law, but divine law. A lot of religion is imposed law, right? It runs off of the same structures. But it's like, okay, so the first fracture is really the fracture of trust. It's really, and lies believed, lies were believed, right? That's what it talks about in the beginning of the Bible, in Genesis. Lies believed, and lies believed break the circle of love and trust. And when that happens, we split into a bi-wave reality. So we're dancing with these polarities, but really, truly, like what's happening from my perspective and what I've seen is that there is an original design, which is the Trinity design, which is about circulation. It's all about like divine devotion, transparent clarity, and sovereign freedom. And that's what we're reconnecting because we've been cut off from the eternal source. And so when we're cut off from eternal source, then we're experimenting with these things that we feel like will bring us fulfillment, but really won't bring us fulfillment, like murdering somebody. Does that make sense? I don't want to talk longer. I'm taking time, but
I mean, I guess I have a question for you because you kind of I'm going to make
yeah.
a supposition. There's no such thing as evil. It's a label. Everything's hyper rational. As we live in a hyper rational world that is so complicated with different forces, it makes it confusing. And then people don't understand why certain something happen and they just don't like it. It's disgusting. But it's like karmic forces. Karma just means momentum, habits, ways of being. And what undoes like things that we don't want, like murder and violence and suicide is like getting to the actual root cause of why those things happen. It's not simple. I mean, I could if you pick something specific, I could give you an example of why something that might help give some understanding of why something that quote unquote is bad is happening is actually just natural flow of the forces of the universe.
So this, I want to acknowledge you all. This is a deep, rich, dense, curiosity-driven, disagreement welcoming, potent engagement of minds and hearts, full of deep care and consideration for each other, for the world. And this is what this place is built for. It took some time to unleash this style of engagement, and I'm just celebrating that we have it. I want to dance with some things real quick. God, I used to say God can redeem any misstep.
Well, I just asked a question to Destiny. It was an opportunity if she wanted to talk about like why she says she doesn't understand why evil things happen. I'm pretty sure I could come to answers. Maybe it's not my turn to talk. Not really sure what the
Oh,
structure is, but that was an invitation to ask a question. So
gotcha.
maybe that wasn't heard. Maybe I said too much.
Yeah,
I did. I was like, I'm here for whatever you have to say. I thought you said you wanted to say something more.
Well, I don't know what
But no,
specific thing.
yeah. So to answer what you just said, I guess, or to speak on what you just said,
Mm,
it's not that I don't know why things happen or like evil things happen. And I get what you're saying of like there is no evil. And that's all perspective. Also, evil for me is not like how it would be described maybe for normal people or for people, whatever.
hmm
Um, More so it is just an act, an act that is out of alignment with who you truly are. And for me, of course, that can be different for everybody. But for me, like I was saying in the beginning, it is circulation, it is reciprocity, it is like love, truth, and trust as much as possible. And so yeah, I I've been down many a
Okay,
whole rabbit
can I
hole.
interrupt you really quick?
But
You
yeah,
ever heard the spiritual law, no contrast, no meaning?
yes,
Okay, that's an underlying principle of reality because you cannot have any of the things that you describe unless you also experience the other side of it. It has no meaning. It would have no meaning. So you can't if you want to
absolutely,
have so they have it's absolutely necessary. If you want to have a feeling of victory of unity, then there has to be separation. Otherwise, there's the ones they don't make sense unless they're both present. So that's why the
absolutely. It
both
has
parts
to
of the
be a choice.
polarity. Yeah.
Yeah, which is also like it's one of the laws. It's one of God's laws is like, liberty and freedom. And you cannot have liberty and freedom if you are forced to love. It is a choice. So we get to choose. But for me, what is good is what is in alignment with original design, what is in alignment with love, like true
Who
love.
says what's original design? It's a very subjective thing. You
all
know,
right. Before this becomes just a Jonathan gets to
yeah,
go one-on-one against Destiny,
yeah.
Yeah.
But
it's being ripped into. Um, that is there an original design? Is a whole nother question. I'm going to take the wheel just for a couple minutes. Hold the ball. And I know you've got more. Abram, did you? Because you haven't spoken in a bit. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, well, I think this is the infinite loop of semantics and language that we're kind of observing here. Because on one hand, like what you just did with the word evil is exactly the same thing that happens with the word God. And one could argue that there is evil and there isn't evil, and it's subjective on one hand. It could, but we all have a definition for those words for ourselves. and this kind of comes back. Destiny, you mentioned Genesis, and this is something, my this is my articulation in language of something that I observed is, the tree of the tree of knowledge of good and evil in Genesis. I mean, that's whether that's symbolic, a metaphor, an actual tree, or is besides my point. My point is there was a point in evolution in humanity, and then I'm speaking like the Bible was not written as a scientific document. It was not written. It was written. Who know? We can only guess and argue like we do about what those men wrote when they wrote the Bible. But with the tree of good and evil, what I hear and I see is exactly what's happening. Is like in our evolution, at some point, language came, and with language became thinking. Our first thinking came in survival to separate. So hey, if I do this, I won't die. If I do this, maybe I won't die. We thought of new ways to live and hunt and survive and not to die. That was early humanity. But as soon as our good and evil with our thoughts eventually came our ego, and our ego came separation, and separation became labeling good and bad, right and wrong. And I think that's exactly what's happening if you read Genesis, of what God said is good and what God said is very good. And it's like, though it's the very question that fuels the expression of the spirit itself. It's language is the house of being. It is our observed reality that it's like bringing, God, in Genesis, God gives a name to this, and like on the seventh day there'll be this, and then this is something, and God said it is good, and I think that's kind of where integrity meets reality. It's like a word is an early evolved species of human. Sorry, let me cancel. Let me say it again. Our words we created, like God in the Bible, to bring form and order to a chaotic reality. That is the function of words. And this whole thing of what's evil, what's good, what's God, what's not, is it's funny, ironically, it's besides the point, but it is the point. Like, could somebody be pursuing and holy without ever speaking the word God? Could somebody be fruitful and never, or doing a violent, vicious act with unintentionally? And it's like it's always in the gray area that I've seen. And I think one of the only things that I can see that is actually black and white in this world, which most things are gray area, is we are living as and with our true self, or we're not. And our true self, that's a whole nother conversation. But I think that's a God that is from God and of God and with God, um, and not fueled by our fear, our ego, our id.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I was just one thing is that, yes, I totally hear it. And for me, it was like the original fracture that I was talking about is the break of trust, because and this is not just biblical, I've studied the Bible, but this has come from my own ness. It's about the fact that we were not supposed to fall into survival frameworks, that it has been accounted for. It was accounted for, meaning that God knows everything that always has been and always will be, every choice that you make, every single little detail about you and everything that you are. However, we fell into survival because we separated from the eternal, because we separated and we broke trust with the eternal. Because after we broke trust, then our connection to source, to true source and true eternal life and true abundance that was always plentiful for us, that's when we fell into survival. So it was not originally intended or designed to be that way, although it was accounted for. Go ahead, Lewis. That's why I just wanted to say that. Trying to keep up with all the things.
Yeah, no, this is good, and I acknowledge and appreciate Jonathan for it. He started this with it being a focus topic and a question, and yeah, I think the question of God is important because the answer implies an original design or not, which gives more meaning to the word good than whatever we happen to personally prefer. Because for Hitler, it was good to kill the Jews. Like, it was really useful politically. And even if good were entirely subjective, the fact that we have a common word that means good, good means that which we want to prefer and pursue. So we can start with something. There is that which we desire, that which we do not. And if there's no original design, if there's nothing to ground ethics in, then there's no reason I can't kill Jonathan right now. I mean, he might not like that, but I prefer a world where we have some shared ethics, and pleasure itself can cause damage. And I like believing that God created me for perfect thriving from love. I like this idea of the intrinsic experience of alignment and primal knowing. Artemis used to say, intellection is secondary, intuition is primary. It's just we've had it obscured through the fracturing or through the darkening of our minds. And then, God can redeem any misstep, is one perspective I've taken on. Like, I can choose whatever timeline I want, but not every misstep is necessary. And the fact that it's a misstep, in that frame at least, implies that there is a highest choice. Anything less than your highest choice, Bob Stevens used to say in conscious language, anything less than your highest choice is self-sabotage. And that whole system, Jonathan, and then looking at Destiny's weaving of words, compass, which you did with compass, I was impressed. That was cool. Like, in sacred body language translations, my lived experience and observation of the data I've gathered with individuals is that there are thought forms that get stored in the body. And these thought forms are not necessarily their thriving highest choice. There's something that comes loose. So when I've been at a retreat or a training and I realize, oh, I can do this, I'll start doing this. I'm receiving on the feminine side that I can and that I will. And I'm activating inspiration. I'm receiving inspiration. It's like something is returning underneath the thought forms that were obscuring my primal truth, the actual reality of who I am. So when we say, I can, I will, I have, I love, I choose, I create, I enjoy, we are returning to a truth at the level of soul that is true about our true self, that is God in our personal experience. And then demons hide in wounds. So like if we have a wound, yeah, we like to play God. We can play God semiotically. We can make up whatever meaning we want for anything, but not every meaning is valid. If I see a car and you see a car, well, I mean, maybe you see a tree where I see a car. We can verify that empirically. Is that an actual fucking car or not? Is that a tree or not? At least scientifically. I know it gets more complicated when we talk about the meanings of the universe, for sure, and good or evil as a made up meaning or something else. But I'm going to finish my statement and then open it up again from the 5 levels of consciousness. At the first level, there's disorientation. We're hoping for happiness, helpless, and making it so. Then there's goal orientation. We feel powerful. We can make anything the way that we want to make it. We can choose anything that we want to choose. And you see where that goes. If you're the only one in charge of the meaning of your existence and reality, and you get to choose whatever the fuck you want, well, then you get millionaire and billionaire psychopathic mastermind game players. We've got nothing to say about Donald Trump and Elon Musk destroying the fucking environment or our political system or each other, right? Or you just do whatever you want. And not even with the and it harm none. And then there's level 3 where it's like, okay, there is no meaning to anything but that which we create. And it's a great place to hang out, but it's not the end, because you go out there and you start using words in radically different ways, you'll be put in a funny farm. You'll be put into a mental institution because you're not speaking English anymore. And English is a game that we have obvious meanings for. And pretty much everybody knows what a car is. If you don't, you've got a problem. So then there's level 4, which is like, okay, maybe the meanings that I make up or discover or invent, the best meanings are the ones that actually support and empower and include other people and not just me, right? And then there's level 5, which is like, okay, well, maybe there's a meaning that's intrinsic to this reality that I just can't see. And this was in the prayer in the beginning. You can't see the picture while you're inside of it. Even my mind, and Jonathan was right, we have a subjective experience. And that is a real thing. That's an intrinsic feature of our experienced reality. But I'd venture to say, based on my observation as a facilitator, that intuition, a perspective beyond me that communicates to me what I need to serve those who I'm caring for, goes beyond what's in my mini me, goes beyond what's in my brain. And so I think including that, bringing that to the table, being curious about what that is, how that works, how that means, is useful. Because if we were all operating from intuition and highest self, truest God expression, then maybe we could undo the fracture. Maybe we could wake up peace, love, and joy in everybody, which brings us back to the point of why we're here. Jonathan, I'm going to quote your comments, and then I see you want to say something. Liberation of suboptimal outcomes depends on precise language of what is happening. Liberation of optimal outcomes, too. It will move us from confusion to clarity. God, evil, good, bad, great are words that are vague and contextual cause confusion. Yeah, which we're here maybe to resolve to some degree.
Yes. All right. I love what you just said, and thanks for reading my quotes. I'm going to be brief. I want to actually go into those quotes because it actually comes back to what I said before.